Hello, I often get asked which glazing medium I use in my tutorials and exactly how much of it is required. In this video I want to take a closer look at this topic. First and foremost, I exclusively use solvent-free glazing mediums. I can only encourage you to do the same, for the sake of your own health and the health of those you live with. To truly understand this, I need to briefly explain two core concepts. Once you have understand these, you shouldn't have any more questions on the subject. First, let's look at the specifics of solvent-free mediums. Traditionally, a glazing medium is mixed from an oil, such as stand oil, and a solvent like turpentine or mineral spirits. Sometimes resins are added to increase gloss and dryers to speed up the process. After you apply a glaze with such a medium, the solvent evaporates completely, leaving a thin film of oil, pigment and perhaps resin on the painting. The oil itself does not evaporate, instead it occurs through a process called polymerization. This requires oxygen. If the layers are too thick, it becomes difficult for oxygen to reach the underlying layers. With solvent-free alternatives, we are dealing with pure oils or resin mixtures or formulations using plant-based diluents. There's no evaporation here, instead the films cure without losing volume. In fact, they slightly increase in volume during the curing process. The consequence, we need significantly less of a solvent-free medium to achieve the same final film thickness. Now for the second crucial point, the fat over lean rule. This dictates that each subsequent layer should always be slightly fatter, meaning it contains more oil or is applied thicker than the one before it. If a top layer dries or polymerizes faster than the layer beneath it, cracking or even delamination of the paint can occur. This is because the film increases in volume and becomes more brittle as it cures. So, now we know the essentials. Use solvent-free medium sparingly and add a tiny bit more medium with every subsequent layer. But how much medium should you actually use? Manufacturers provide guidelines to keep you in the safe zone. I will demonstrate 6 different solvent-free glazing mediums for traditional oil paints. Most manufacturers suggest a maximum addition of 20%. Michael Harding currently recommends less than 10% on his website, and M. Graham suggests 1 to 3 drops per extruded inch of paint. These ratios ensure proper drying and a stable foundation for following layers. In this video I will apply 2 layers of glazing. I will start with a mixture of 1 inch, about 2.5 centimeters of paint and 2 drops of medium or a pea-sized amount of gel. This gives off the rough ratio about 15% medium. For the second glaze I will use 3 drops, which is slightly over 20%. In my experience you don't need to be more precise than that. Mediums containing alkyd in particular form very stable films and are quite forgiving if your fat over lean ratio isn't perfect. In nearly 20 years of using Graham walnut alkyd oil I have never experienced a single crack or technical issue. One thing you should know, however, if you use too much of these mediums, say 50%, you will end up in an inconsistent gloss or beading and the surface can remain tacky for a long time, making it hard to continue glazing. Now let me briefly introduce the mediums I'm testing today. In the demonstration we will see how long they take to dry and what they look like after drying. Schminke refined linseed oil. Yes, you can use pure oil, but I'm including it here primarily for comparison. If you use too much pure oil, which happens easily, you will face long drying times and a surface that provides very little tooth for subsequent layers. M. Graham walnut alkyd oil. One of the best known solvent-free mediums on the market, it consists of walnut oil with alkyd resin and a dryer for fast curing. Gamblin solvent-free fluid. Similar to the Graham medium but based on safflower oil. Gamblin solvent-free gel, the gel version of the Gamblin medium. Michael Harding Miracle Quick Dry Dummer Glaze, a blend of Harding's Miracle medium, a plant-based diluent, stand-all, dummer resin, and dryer. Conceptually, it mirrors the traditional glazing medium, but the turpentine has been replaced by the Miracle diluent. Crema sun-thickened walnut oil, a classic medium without any additives, even used by the old masters. The walnut oil is thickened by exposure to sunlight. The result is a faster drying time and higher gloss. The Crema product is surprisingly fluid, not honey-like like some stand oils. Rublev Oleo Gel. This gel is marketed for glazing with a recommended limit of 25%. It contains no alcohol and no dryers. I'm applying the first glaze onto a white universal primer, in this case portrait grade linen. I have chosen alizarin Crimson Lake from Old Holland. You can already feel a significant difference during application. The pure paint without medium, as well as the mixture with pure linseed oil, feels quite draggy and stiff. It's difficult to achieve an even layer with this. The glazes using the specialized mediums are much easier to spread. After 1 day of drying, here's the results. Both Gamblin mediums are dry to the touch. The Crema oil and the Graham medium are still slightly sticky. The glazes with oleo gel, linseed oil and the pure paint remain wet. After 2 days of drying, all glazes are dry to the touch. It's striking that some glazes are very matte, while others have a distinct gloss. A matte surface is expected with the pure paint, as the primer soaks up some of the oil. However, the mixture with the pure linseed oil is also matte, and somewhat surprisingly, so the Michael Harding glaze. The strongest gloss comes from the 2 Gamblin mediums, with the gel having a slight edge. The other mixtures show a moderate gloss, and the difference between the sun-thickened walnut oil and the standard linseed oil is quite noticeable. I see the greatest color depth in the Gamblin mediums and the Crema oil. Now I apply a second glaze over the alizarin Crimson. I'm using ultramarine blue by Old Holland and adding 1 extra drop of medium, so 3 drops instead of 2 drops per inch of paint. The optical mixing of these 2 layers results in a deep violet. After 1 day, none of the glazes are dry to the touch. After the second day, only the Gamblin gel is almost dry. I also have control samples on a non-absorbent tear-off palette. On the palette, all samples are dry to the touch after 2 days, except for the pure paint and the oleo gel, which is still very open. After 3 or 4 days, all samples are dry to the touch. Only the oleo gel remain tacky. Now let's look at the visual differences. The surface quality of the second glaze generally follows the first, but no one of them are quite as glossy as the first layer. The Michael Harding mixture is very matte. The oleo gel and the Gamblin gel still show gloss. Though it's less uniform than at the first layer. This is because ultramarine blue pigments have a high oil absorption rate and the Old Holland paint is set quite short. In a finished painting, I would likely oil out the surface if it were the final layer. As you can see, mixing glazing mediums correctly is not rocket science. You just need to follow a few simple rules. But the most important thing is to gain your own experience and learn how a specific medium interacts with your paints. I've used Graham medium for nearly 20 years and have the most experience with it. However, I recently switched to the Gamblin gel because I enjoy the gloss and find it very easy to dose and mix on the palette. If you prefer a matte finish and want optimal adhesion between layers, you should give the Michael Harding a try. In my own work, I often made the upper layers fatter by adding a bit of stand oil to the Harding medium, and still achieved a very fast drying time. These are, of course, my personal preferences. All the mediums I've used here are top-tier products from real-owned manufacturers. And I highly recommend doing your own experiments.